Hey guys, so I just wanted to take a little bit of time and talk about trademarks and how the trademark process works. Most of us as business owners are really not familiar with how trademark law works and how a lawyer can help or not help. Trademark law is really a two-step process, okay? So you start out with what's usually called a trademark search, but really it's a formal analysis and a comparison to all the trademarks that are out there. So trademarks protect in your industry. It's industry specific, okay? So that's how we get, Hallmark spelled Haulmark, that helps people, that's a moving service that doesn't conflict at all with Hallmark greeting cards, right? So those are two totally separate industries, but it's a very similar mark. If Hallmark spelled with the U was used for any kind of stationery or print, that would probably infringe on the Hallmark greeting cards, if that makes sense, okay? So you want to avoid infringement. What constitutes infringement? Infringement is when any regular person would be confused as to who made the goods or who's delivering the services, okay? Another easy example is Delta. You have Delta Airlines, and then you have Delta Plumbing, which is a totally different industry. So they might even be in the same airport, but it's not confusing because you know that one's for plumbing, one's for airlines. All right, so the first step is the trademark search and analysis. This is all the different derivative versions of it. So, we'd search for Hallmark spelled Hallmark and Hallmark with the U, like we talked about earlier. We'd see if there's any other derivative versions that are similar to it in that industry, okay? Which is differentiated by classes in the USPTO, but you don't really need to know about that. If upon the results of that search and analysis, which really ought to be done by a lawyer, you get positive results, and we're of the professional legal opinion that you guys can move forward with a registration and likely get it approved with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, USPTO, then we'll recommend the second step, which is submitting an application, okay? So there's different fees associated with all of this. When you submit an application, the USPTO treats all of your different things, so your brand name, your brand logo, your brand tagline, if you have one, or catchphrase, those are all treated as separate, entirely separate marks. So another easy example is Nike. Okay, so Nike has the brand name, Nike. It has the logo, which is usually just the swoosh or the check mark. Sometimes the logo has Nike written on it too. But the logo is a separate mark. It's independent of the Nike brand name, okay? And then third, they have the tagline, which is Just Do It. So Just Do It is a third independent mark. An easy way to think about this is that McDonald's has gone through all of these different catchphrases over the years. They've kind of let go of some of these old catchphrases that they used in their older marketing schemes, and that's totally okay. Each one goes through sort of a different process, okay? So you need to send in with an independent, separate application. So that means that each application that we're sending in has its own, legal fees, and it has its own USPTO filing fees. Typically, the USPTO charges about $250 for each class that you're filing for. So let's say that a typical application would have one class that you're applying for that in, okay? Maybe it's professional services like I'm in. Then each of those marks would have its own $250 or so filing fee, okay? So Sparks Law brand name has, a $250 filing fee. My Sparks Law logo has another $250 filing fee. And my tagline, where imagination meets action, has another filing fee. Makes sense? If you want to apply in multiple industries, which some people do, we, for example, have a trademark in both the professional services industry and the educational industry because, hey, what are we doing? We're educating, right? So I want to be able to prevent people from companies from using my trademark in the educational industry, which is what I'm doing. So I will also apply in that class, which just multiplies it all by 2. So instead of 250, 250, 250, you have 500, 500, 500. Make sense? You might think that, because it's called a trademark search, it's very similar to just going onto Google and searching, on Google. But there's a whole lot more to it than that. So the legal analysis really has to happen from a lawyer. I've seen a lot of trademark applications for ludicrous trademarks like,
Big Bob's rusted gated awesome community sauce spice, with $10 off if you register now in Kansas,
Literally, these trademarks will be a mile long. The reason that those trademarks are out there are because people didn't get the advice of a professional attorney on how to do that and what it's worth to registering for. As far as I understand, our non-attorney competitors, if you can call them that, will offer what they call a trademark search for $40. Okay, obviously we don't charge $40. It takes us like a couple days to do one search. What they're doing for that $40 basically is just taking the exact, and it's just a computer, so it takes the exact trademark that you write into their form, and then it looks at just the USPTO database for actual registrations that have that exact same mark. That's a problem though, because if you tried to register for Nike and you spelled it Nighkee, no trademark examiner at the USPTO in their right mind is ever going to give you that trademark if it's in athletic apparel or shoes or whatever. But if you search it with this non-attorney company for that $40, they're going to tell you that it's available. Why are they saying it's available? Well, because when they searched it, nothing came up, right? But obviously that would be infringing. Nighkee would infringe on Nike, the trademark. People would be confused as to who made those goods, okay? Another reason is that we need to figure out the industry that you're in, okay? So when they're doing that search, they might come up with a direct hit search, somebody that has your exact same mark, like if you're Delta Airlines, but they would notice the direct mark in another class that you don't care about. And you might need an attorney to explain to you what that class entails, that industry at the USPTO website, and what you're doing, so does it matter? If I were representing Delta Airlines before they had their trademark and, I hired some non-attorney thing for $40 to search it, they would tell me it's not available because there's also Delta Plumbing. Further, the best trademarks that you can get are the smallest, so the shorter they are, the broader they are, okay? So Nike is a great trademark because that's all it is. Nobody else can use that single word or anything like that single word in the athletic apparel and shoes, industry. But a terrible trademark is that one that I was talking about earlier, like
Billy Bob's Burgers in Kansas with a $10 off deal every July 4th.
Because no one in their right mind is going to use that exact string of words together. So you have zero protection because you're not, nobody's going to try to infringe on it. It's not really a trademark. So you need a lawyer to, help you through that process and tell you what's good and what's bad and what's worth your money and what's really not. So that's everything trademarks. Just a couple other notes real quick. The URL, people think that that's owning the trademark. I get it. It makes sense, intellectually, but that's not how the law works. So if you own a URL, if you get Nike.org or whatever, that doesn't mean that you own, the Nike mark. There are some legal things around that I'd be happy to get into more detail with you about, but it really doesn't matter if you own the URL. It's great if you own the URL, but it has no legal significance. Other people think that their business's name has to be the exact same as their trademark. That's also not true. For example, many businesses have a different name than their actual trademarks that they're selling in terms of products. So General Motors Corporation is the business's name, but that of course owns my favorite, Corvettes, and it owns, Chevrolet and all of these other things, right? It can be the same, but it doesn't have to be. All right, I think that's all. Feel free to give us a shout if you have any questions. This is kind of complicated stuff, but we're happy to talk you through it. Keep rocking, guys. We'd love to keep entrepreneurs, successful and just going at it every day. So rock on. We'll talk to you soon.